This is the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post, and he's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. John, I'm excited to do this. Wait, what are we doing, by the way?
Are the lawyers letting us do this, Andrew? We've been waiting for months. I will say
practicing
this.
Since the summer, guys. We've been practicing since the summer on this. Waiting for the green light. We're happy it's here.
By the way, we both kept a secret. That's the most surprising part about this. But
No leaks.
Listen, the day that we tape this, to me, is a perfect illustration of why I wanted to do a pod with you. Two stories on Tuesday drove most of the conversations in sports media all day. You were the one, you broke the story about ESPN changing up its NBA countdown, which dominated my Twitter feed all day, pretty much.
And listen, we're not here just to pat ourselves on the back. I mean, we'll do plenty of that. I'm not opposed to that. But you also, Sage Steele, the other big story of the day, she's not suspended, ESPN will tell you, but she's off the air for the rest of the week. You can call it what you want, but she's off the air for the rest of the week. She's not going to the ESPN W Summit. You had that first, like you do a lot of stories. And so what we want to do here is just go further into the stories, go deeper, tell you what we know, John and I had these conversations offline for a long time. Now we want to share them with you. So we're happy you're listening and we appreciate it greatly. So, and how is it going to work? We're going to have a rundown every week. So we're going to hit on 3 to 5 topics each week. Some weeks we're going to have an interview. This week we're excited to kick off everything with Scott Van Pelt.
Go Terps.
Yeah, go Terps. Well, you'll see when you listen to the interview. They're both Maryland grads. Ourand loves Scott Van Pelt more than his wife. We get into that and into a lot of things as well. And Van Pelt's great about media issues. And obviously he's excellent on SportsCenter. We're calling the segment 6 Pretty Good Minutes. It won't be exactly 6 minutes, but it will be concise. Not one of these long interviews that sometimes you hear. And then at the end of the show, we'll have our calls of the week, which could be a play-by-play call, could be an executive decision, could be something a broadcaster does, an agent does. So calls of the week. But we start every week with
Who's up? Who's down?
John, you can kick us off with who's up.
Who's up? Eric Shanks, Lenny Daniels. You can throw in Jimmy Pitaro, too, for that matter.
Hold on. Before we even get started, Ourand's already going. He's just hit every executive, okay? So, I mean, listen, what are we doing?
I need stories, guys. Look, from a TV perspective, this baseball postseason is set up to be one for the ages. I mean, 7 of the top 10 media markets are participating in this year's playoffs. So they could end up as 4-game sweeps. We don't know. It could be a disaster. But I can tell you, I know executives at Fox and Turner have been popping champagne corks.
Who's up for me? Greg Olsen. Olsen is one of the new analysts on Fox. To me, he looks like he could be a potential number 1, which is not easy to find. I'm not saying he's there yet, but I do think Olsen is a guy who could be a star. The thing I like about him, he's so relaxed on the air. He's working with the likable Kevin Burkhardt. And I just think he is someone who has gotten some publicity, but maybe not even enough of how good he's been in these first couple of weeks of the NFL season. All right, John. And then we go who's down. The dreaded who's down. Nobody wants to be in this. Who do you got?
It's got to be Sage, doesn't it? Sage Steele, right? Didn't she get the memo that on-air talent at ESPN has to stay away from politics? I mean, she ended up wading into some of the biggest social issues that are dividing this country. Ends up being what looks awful like a suspension. She's not going to be on SportsCenter for the rest of the week. She's not going to be moderating a panel at the ESPNW conference. It hasn't been a really good week for Sage.
Yeah, and then she did it on the Jay Cutler podcast. That's not exactly where you think news is going to be broken. And then it's going to cost you being on the air. Sage has been outspoken in the past. She makes a lot of money, 7 figures, well into 7 figures. And so she's messing with that situation. It's going to be interesting to see what ESPN does in the future with Sage Steele, because, look, I think at this point, Jimmy Pitaro and company, they don't want these headaches anymore. They don't want these stories anymore. And quite honestly, I don't really understand, and this is probably a bigger discussion, if you're taking a check from someplace and they want you not to hit on some of these issues when you're doing public facing interviews or you're on Twitter, I don't really see, it's not a freedom of speech issue. You take the check and those are the rules. And in this case, Sage, she probably feels like, well, this is how I feel and I should be able to say what I want. That's true. You can say what you want, but if you take the check from Disney, you get that little Mickey Mouse on your check, you kind of abide by the mouse's rules. And so, she's in trouble. And that, I think it could hurt her in the future in terms of her future there.
John Skipper's ESPN sort of almost welcomed that until it didn't. He's been completely consistent since he's gotten over ESPN, and there is no tolerance for this. So, Andrew, who's down?
I have College Game Day down. I'll tell you why. Their decision this Saturday not to go to Iowa City for Iowa, number 3 in the country, versus Penn State, number 4. To me, why do you cede that space to Fox? Now, I get it. The game's on Fox. I get it. They want Hurt Street and Fowler to call the Texas-Oklahoma game. I get all that. You're Game Day. You're the iconic show, and you have to serve your viewers first and foremost, and you have to be where the most important story of the day is because you want to be the epicenter. You have been your iconic show. Bad decision to go to Texas to a state fair. I got Mark Shapiro the other day in my Post Plus newsletter that you can subscribe to every Monday. Shapiro went to town on them. I know ESPN wasn't thrilled with his comments, but I agree with him. I don't see how you cannot be in Iowa City for that game.
You don't see Shapiro quoted every day. Did he know you were quoting him? Was he surprised to see that in the paper the next day?
Yes, of course. I said to him, "Are you sure?" That's what I said. I don't know if my editors would like that. I said, "Are you sure?" Mark's always been outspoken. He's one of the great quotes for executives. A lot of them are, mealy mouthed and don't want to say anything. Shapiro's always been outspoken since he was the hotshot 30-year-old, running ESPN.
Well, what makes that decision so surprising is that in the past, they haven't cared whether they carry the game or not. They pick one of the biggest games or one of the best storylines, and there's no bigger storyline on Saturday than that.
Topic 1.
And topic 1 is the NBA and their moves that they made, John.
Yeah, Andrew, you broke this news. Mike Greenberg, Stephen A. Smith, Wilbon, Magic. How did this all come about?
So Dave Roberts, who's now in charge of the NBA, right when he got the job, he went out to LA. He met with Stephen A., Wilbon, and Magic, and the three of them, they kind of wanted to form their own big three to, borrow the NBA vernacular. They're good buddies, and they feel like, and ESPN hopes, that their camaraderie can really, come through the screen. What ESPN's getting with these three, they especially with Wilbon and Stephen A., and now let me put Greenberg in there, they know what they're getting TV-wise, and then their hope is that they meld it into something that can be special. Will it ever be inside the NBA? I doubt it, but there is that. You want that friendship on the air. That's what separates teams.
You mentioned inside the NBA. One of the problems that I think ESPN has had is they always seem to be chasing inside the NBA, which along with College Game Day, one of the 2 best studio shows of all time, in my opinion. But the thing about inside the NBA, it's not a pregame show. It's not even, it's barely even a sports show. It's a sort of a comedy and social, like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, they'll talk about whatever they want to talk about. And ESPN, it's not in their DNA to come up with a show that's similar to that.
Yeah, and then of course they put Greenberg as the lead, which after what happened with Maria Taylor and Rachel Nichols, they go with Greenberg. And so you say, why? So I talked to some people. Why do they go with Greenberg? Well, the feeling with ESPN is that he makes his analysts better. They give him a lot of credit. You see a lot of people who have been developed on Get Up, from Marcus Spears to Dan Orlovsky to others. And they feel like Greenberg has a lot to do with that. And so quarterbacking the show, they thought he's the best guy for that program. And that's why he's going to be the host of the finals. He'll be on ESPN about 27 hours every day.
Well, I find it striking that after Maria Taylor, after Rachel Nichols, they moved forward without any women in lead roles for their NBA studio shows, and it's something that they haven't done in just about a decade.
They do have Shanae Ogwumike on Wednesdays, and then you also have Malika Andrews who's hosting NBA Today. So there are women involved, just not at the lead role, which you might have expected after what happened with Rachel and Maria. But they felt like Greenberg is the right person to lead that show. It's not like Greenberg isn't an accomplished host and isn't someone who has been successful on a lot of platforms, including radio for a long time and then TV. So he has been successful. And how about Jalen Rose, John? He's been on that show now for 10 years, which, given the amount of changes the Countdown has made, that's about 100 years for any other program.
Topic 2.
NFL, we're in week 4. 4 takeaways we have. John, you can lead off. What do you got?
Just about a quarter of the way through the season, NFL TV ratings are ridiculously high and seemingly defying physics. I can't tell you how big of a story this is in the TV business. Cord cutters, they are out there. They really are. But in a world where flat is the new up, these numbers they're mind-boggling. Every single NFL window right now through week 4 is up. All told, the NFL audience is up 16% over last year, and I think it was 4% over 2019. The exact point when I realized that the NFL was a runaway freight train, it was last week's Thursday Night Football game on NFL Network. It was on paper a dog of a game. It was Jacksonville against Cincinnati, 2 teams that have no national following, and there's no TV network executive that's trying to get those teams to play there. Well, that game, it posted 8.5 million viewers. It was up 47% from last year. It was one of the NFL Network's most watched games in 3 years. It's preposterous how much the ratings are up right now.
And I think it has to do a lot also with the fans being back in the stands. I think last year, we're still in the pandemic, no fans, just the excitement level for these games were just not as high. All right, let's go second takeaway. What do you have?
They haven't started negotiating yet for a Sunday ticket. Those negotiations are starting to trickle in, but they have had informal talks. They've had them with Apple TV. They've had them with Amazon. They've had them with Disney. They haven't had them with everybody yet. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of companies that want to get Sunday ticket, including DirecTV. And so what the NFL has to decide is whether or not they want to just go all digital and go all in with someone like Amazon, or whether they want to split the package up and have it go to DirecTV and maybe ESPN or I think that they are going to really need DirecTV. And this is a flip-flop by me. I'm starting to think that they want to do a deal with DirecTV because number one, DirecTV wants them. And number two, one of the biggest draws of Sunday ticket, it comes from all the bars and restaurants. They're not hooked up to receive streaming yet in nearly the same way that they receive. They can just put a satellite dish on their roof and they already have that. So there are a lot of considerations that the NFL has to look at. But basically, once again, the NFL is sitting on a pile of cash from these rights.
Yes, and I think they probably split it up because of the point that you've made about the bars. I do think that I don't know. Maybe Amazon can figure that out. They figure out most things, so maybe they can figure out those logistics. But that is a big headache. There is still some leadway because we're still not. It's not next year. It's the year after. Amazon, ESPN Plus. Those are my 2 favorites digitally. Apple, I'll believe it when I see it. They really haven't gotten into anything yet. Could they make a big play? Sure. Do they have the money? Of course. But I think it's Amazon, ESPN Plus.
My digital prediction, Peacock. I think that they need to do something to draw in subscribers because they're floundering now.
All right, we have dinner on this. Okay. John says Peacock. I get the field. John,
Wait, you got the field. How did that work out?
All right. I'll take Amazon.
All right.
I'll take Amazon, ESPN Plus. You can have one more. You get next choice. You want ESPN?
Well, now that I know you're not going to take Peacock, yeah, I'll take ESPN.
All right, fine. And then I'll put Apple in there, but I don't think so. I think it's ESPN. So I don't know what kind of bet this is. So, but anyways, if I get any of those, you owe me dinner.
All right. So Andrew, give me one of your takeaways. NFL season, 4 weeks in.
The new analyst, Greg Olson, has been very good. Mark Sanchez has done a really good job. Is very comfortable. There's been a lot of buzz with Gus Johnson and Aqib Talib. And so I look at these analysts batch, and there are some really strong up-and-comers who could really be on your TVs on Sundays for a long time. And then there's Drew Brees. I did a review of Brees' first game where he did the Notre Dame game, and he was okay, but I really felt like he improved last week. I watched a good amount of the Cincinnati game, and he showed potential to me that I didn't see as much that first game. He needs to own the end of the game, the quarterback situation. He had some strong statements about who Notre Dame should play at quarterback, which coming from Drew Brees means something. And he seems to be studying it, which is always an indicator of how someone is going to do long term. Are they into it? Are they passionate? Do they want to do it? I do get that feeling from Brees. He does.
All those new analysts, it just reinforces to me just what a unicorn Tony Romo was. When he came in, he went into CBS's #1 team right away and just he never looked back. It just shows me how well they did with that one. Your second takeaway from the NFL season.
People are listening to this. These guys are talking about the NFL season and they haven't mentioned the Manning cast in terms of sports TV. Are you kidding me? Of course, the Manning brother. I mean, what a success. Are you kidding me? ESPN is paying the Mannings definitely 8 figures for Peyton. I don't know if Eli's getting it. They got the production deal. They're trying to keep it secret. I'm trying to find out. There is it is for a lot of money though. I know that. The deal's ridiculous for the Mannings. They're doing jazzed up Zooms. It's WFH, work from home for them. They only have to work 10 out of 17 weeks. I mean, how ridiculous is that contract? But here's the thing. It's great for ESPN as well because everyone loves it. The weeks that they weren't on this past week for the first time, and people were like, where are the Mannings? Where are the Mannings? It's a smash hit, great success. Let me bring it back to what we talked about at the beginning with Countdown and Inside the NBA and all these shows that are successful. Fox's NFL Sunday. Why are they successful? Because it's not as much it's about sports and trying to be informative, but it's also about having fun. And Eli busting on Peyton is what makes this show go. How many people could say to Peyton Manning, your armpit sweat is showing? Not many people. And Eli can do that. And that's why this show goes. And obviously, they're both, Mensa when it comes to talking about quarterbacking. And this has been a humongous success. And, I can have all the who's ups in the world when you really think about it.
Yeah, we can come up probably with 20 reasons each why we like the show. But why is it a success? I mean, in TV terms, from week 1 to week 2, it doubled its audience. People sampled it. They came back. People sampled it. They talked about it and brought their friends in to watch. And then from week 2 to week 3, it increased its audience again. I mean, if you have a new television show, that's the kind of audience growth you want to see. All too often, the TV shows start big with the premiere and go the other way. And so the audience has totally bought into this. And to me, it looks like it can be really long lasting.
6 pretty good minutes.
We're not going to have guests every week, but when we can have someone special in, we're going to do it. And we really thought it was appropriate, at least I did, to have our first guest, Scott Van Pelt. He's a Maryland grad like John Ourand. And Scott, we did some practice podcasts during the summer. And one of my big takeaways is that John may love you more than he loves his wife.
One simple rule of this podcast, Scott: nobody can talk bad about Scott Van Pelt. And my criteria is simple. It's not every Maryland alum. It's just the ones that went to College Park in the late 80s. They were RTVF majors, and they're actually in my classes.
Well, right. Marchand, I would think it would be a really, really skinny lane of people that would be in. And we were in what was sort of like journalism light. I couldn't get into the journalism school at Maryland. Several years ago, I was asked to give the commencement address, which was one of my very favorite things ever, because I said, you're taking advice this morning from someone who couldn't get into the college that you were graduating from. But Ourand and I go way back to, we were in classes back in the day in College Park. And I'm proud of the space that he has carved out for himself. Both of you guys are big wigs in this industry, and I'm happy to be your maiden voyage here.
I love the story about how you got started in the business. You're basically sleeping on somebody's couch when you're 25 and you drove down to Orlando and got into the Golf Channel. You're a 25-year-old today. How are you looking at this market? How are you going to break into sports media?
I don't know that I would. I mean, I've told the story often that it's just a giant happy accident that I ended up having an opportunity at the Golf Channel years ago, and Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods. I mean, it was serendipity times a million, and truly, so many dominoes had to fall in a sequence for any of this to happen, and it's remarkably unlikely. It's easier now to anyone can do this, as you all are proving. you get
we're still gonna, just for the record, we're still gonna write. So just keep that in mind.
of course you are. And it's look, but my point, Marchand, is that anyone could do this, and everyone is. And so if I'm 25 and I'm thinking, hey, this is what I want to do. All right, well, me and my buddies will throw together a podcast. Well, who cares? Who's listening? How do you create an audience? How do you create content that anyone will seek, or that anyone, more importantly, no one's seeking it because they don't know to seek it. How will they find it? Now, once they find it, what are you giving people that makes them want to find it again? It would feel daunting to me, given the amount of clutter and the amount of noise, to think, I've got something to say and it's worthwhile.
And so two things here for me is just SportsCenter is iconic to this day, and your name's on it, which I don't believe that's ever been has happened previously. So that's number one, what that means to you, but also how did that all come together?
It was interesting. I was doing radio with Russillo, and we knew what the executives never got, which is that we connected to an audience, and it was not for them. And we talked about it. I think they've talked about it to a degree, that they didn't get it. And because they didn't get it, I don't think they recognized that we had created a connection to an audience. And Russillo's proven it with what he's done with The Ringer and the kind of numbers he does. He's excellent in that space. Excellent. But and at the time was John Wildhack. It was John Wildhack and John Skipper. Were interested in taking some of what we did on radio and putting it in a late night sports center. And I was really hesitant to do it because you said, I think correctly, Andrew, it's sports centers. It's an iconic thing. I mean, lots of people have taken their shots. Other networks were going to do it, and they're going to take us down, and they don't even try anymore. Sports centers and people can say, oh, I don't watch it anymore. Okay. I don't know. Check our ratings. Our ratings are up from several years ago. We still do pretty well. And so, to your point, when it was going to be mine, that was daunting to me. I mean, because I think about every person that's been great on it, and if I start naming them, I'll leave people out. But you go back to whomever it was that you identify with that, and what made it truly an iconic brand. And I respect every one of them. I didn't want to F it up, but I also felt like, at midnight, frankly, a lot of our execs are asleep. Unless I really do F it up, they're not going to hear about it. And they're just going to look at the numbers.
Right? That's a good thing they're asleep, right?
Without question, because, I'm not going to ask for forgiveness. I don't have to ask for permission. I'll just ask forgiveness, as they say.
Now, take me back. And I think this is your last contract that came up. NBC had a real big interest in you. What can you tell us about what happened there and then your decision-making process?
I mean, I was very flattered. I talked to them. I talked to Shanks and the people out of Fox who I happen to, I know them and like them. I mean, this, you guys know this business. It's a small little cocktail party, man. And if you just are decent to everybody, I mean, we're cordial, and I think we're competitive, but it's not like there's infighting or whatever else. So you get to know the Lazaruses and the Shanks of the world, and we had conversations. And, for me at the time, I just came back to the idea that for me, I was home, and I was just intimidated by the idea of having to go to a Fox or an NBC with a blank canvas and create something. It was always flattering that happened. It happened too soon though, because now the money that's involved. Now I'd use it as a massive leverage play. So Shanks, Laz, get at me, get at me for that big dough.
Now, if you're
Call
doing it,
me
it's
up. You know
also,
Montag's number.
now if you're doing it's also DraftKings and FanDuel and all these gambling companies that have all that.
It's like ATMs are exploding and there's money in the air. And I'm just like, I just want to get an umbrella and turn it upside down and catch all that money. So yeah, but everyone call Montag immediately.
Scott, I want to hit on bad beats for a quick second, because you really, when you brought that to television, it really was ahead of the curve. And now just this week, NBC said it's going to have live odds on its golf telecasts. There is such a big rush to incorporate gambling into telecasts. How are you going to lean into that differently?
I'd really, honestly, John, I don't think we will. Whether you bet $50 on the Knicks or not, when something awful happens, it's funny. It's just compelling. You can't take your eyes off because you're like, no, I can't believe this happened again. And then it does every week. So I said, this is what we're going to do. And okay. And again, like I said, if it was a disaster, they would have said, look, we probably can't do that, but it's not how it went.
I've got one last one. Scott, what would be your advice for people who cover sports media like we do?
I think the thing that maybe people don't get is that we largely root for one another. I mean, and maybe I'm nuts. But I think largely we see people succeed and we think, great. I mean, I don't know if you get $1 every time you write that Stephen A. Smith makes $12 million. If you did, you'd have $12 million. If you got $1 for every time you wrote it, Marchand, you'd have $12 million. But
I don't know. I'm going to try that. See if that works.
I hope you do. See if you get in your next contract with the Post. You get $1 every time you write Stephen A. made $12 million. You have $12 million.
You have to say it is fascinating. Not that he hasn't earned it. I could make the case for why Stephen A. is worth it. That is a fascinating part of the business.
It gets complicated in terms of, well, what are they paying for that? What is that you get this for the TV piece, and there's these deals, these production things, and it gets a little bit convoluted. And that's when I think you gave up and just said, write 12 million, because that's a lot of dough. But here's what I'd say personally about that. And because people say, God, does that piss you off? What? Stephen A. works his ass off. He works as hard in this business as anyone, and is a born entertainer and is able to do, and I say that as someone who can host shows, who can go be on other shows, like host Kimmel, do the General Hospital bit, just, recurring character or whatever. I appreciate that the hustle has been rewarded with the payday. And when Cowherd left, when he left and created a bunch of different revenue streams or whatever else, I think, go get every nickel, dime, and dollar, because there's a small window, not small for us as it is for athletes, because we can do this when we're old. But I guess what I'm saying, Marchand, is that I think mostly we root for each other.
It's 6 pretty good minutes. I think we went a little bit over, but thank you. Very first guest on our podcast. We can't thank you enough for coming on.
And remember the rule, Marchand, only kind things about me. Nothing bad can be said about me.
We'll see.
Scott Van Pelt, Maryland Terrapin. That was great, right? Right, Andrew?
He was great. The one thing is, he said, what would you do? Would you get into the business? He said, no, I wouldn't get into the business. But then there'd be no Scott Van Pelt. He's very relaxed on the air. And I do think you really can feel the thread of what he did on radio during that Sports Center show that he does every night, which I think is a key to connecting with that audience.
I don't know. I liked his advice. I thought it was more than don't get in it. I thought it was like, you can get in it.
He said anybody can have a podcast. Even us.
Continue to write, continue to work, get in there, have something to say, and find a place to say it.
We call it 6 pretty good minutes, but we went a little bit over. The interview actually went 30, and then we're editing it down because we want to just give you guys the best parts of it, not just have it go on and on. So hopefully you enjoy that. We're not doing it every week. When we have special guests, we're going to do it, but a lot of times it might just be John and I, and then some weeks we will have a special guest.
Topic 3. Topic 4.
This is a big issue around where I live. Comcast has taken MSG off the air. You are better on this subject than anybody. You've been covering it forever. But you say about this issue that MSG Network off the air. They do the Knicks, they do the Rangers, they have the Devils, they have the Islanders. They're off the air. You say this is going to be different. You expect it to be prolonged. I want the average person out there to understand what's going on here. Why do you say it's going to be longer than, usually these deals they fight and then eventually they get together and it's just a lot of statements back and forth. And then last minute it says, oh, we got together. You can watch the Knicks. Why is this different?
Several years ago, Comcast dropped Yes Network in those same markets, Northern New Jersey and Connecticut. They went without the Yankees in those markets for a full year, and they did nothing to try to get Yes Network back on until Fox Sports Fox owned it at the time, and Fox News's contract was up, and they jammed Fox News with the RSN and were able to convince them to get it in. MSG, they're just MSG. There's no Fox News, there's no Fox broadcast waiting there to help them negotiate to get back on. And so Comcast is betting that there aren't enough Knicks, Rangers, Islanders, Devils fans who are willing to cut the cord and go to another provider to ruin their business. So they see what the viewing stats are.
So, John, in my first newsletter, another newsletter plug, my first newsletter, I wrote about how ESPN is going to go direct to consumer within the next 5 years. And for those who didn't read it, that means the ESPN, not ESPN Plus, the ESPN, Monday Night Football, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, that ESPN will do that in the next 5 years. If you're MSG and you're these regional sports networks, can you do that? Why can't you do that? What is is that a sound play? And let me also say about ESPN, it will also still be on cable. It just will also be available direct to consumer. So can that play work for Yes Networks, MSGs, and all the RSNs around the country?
Well, it's harder. ESPN has a lot more leverage. They're part of Disney. They own ABC Broadcast Network. They own all the Disney channels. ESPN has 20 channels, seemingly as well. Here's the problem, though. MSG can go direct to consumer tomorrow, but if it does that, it's going to make a lot less money. Nobody's going to subscribe to an MSG streaming service in the summer. They have no summer sports right there. Nobody, let's say you're a Rangers fan and they start out winless through December, you're not going to, all of a sudden you're there for 2 months. The whole beauty of the RSN business as a business study is that 20% of the cable audience were watching that RSN, but it was paid for by 100% of the subscribers. So your proverbial grandmother down the street who would never watch a sporting event was paying the same amount as you, who's a big sports fan. And so that's how they made all their money.
But let me stop you for a second though, because I don't want to go too long on this question. But wasn't the cable bundle better for everybody? Because the grandma who's not watching ESPN and MSG, she might be getting another channel that she likes that now costs 10 cents. So yes, the money went to sports predominantly and some other networks. But wasn't it better for everybody? Now we're going to have 50,000 subscriptions. You should get Post Plus, $4.99, in the Sports Business Journal. But how many subscriptions can everyone have? If you want to watch soccer, you need every subscription in the book, and you need cable. So wasn't it better overall, or am I mistaken? I don't think I'm mistaken.
It was better overall. No, it's better overall for sports fans, absolutely. But for grandma, she can watch the broadcast channels, and then she can get Netflix, or she can get Amazon Prime, and get all the entertainment shows she wants. She never watches sports. Why am I going to pay that huge amount when all I want is a broadband service, broadcast channels, and a couple of streaming services? It works out perfectly for her.
All right, fine. It's good for grandma, and we love grandma, so that's good. We want grandmas to be happy.
Call of the week.
All right, we finish up every week with our calls of the week, and this can be a play-by-play call. It could be a decision by an executive or an agent or whomever, or somebody, or John makes a good decision. Maybe I'll give it to him one week. John, you know what? Let me go first on this one because yours is more fun. Mine is NFL Countdown at Foxborough. I ripped ESPN earlier because of their terrible decision to not send game day to Iowa City for Iowa, number 3 in the country, versus Penn State, number 4 in the country. So let me give them praise, though. They went to Foxborough last weekend. Tom Brady returns. The show is NFL Sunday Countdown, not just previewing a game. it was the right move. The atmosphere was electric. It's one of their better shows they've had. I mean, I'm sick of hearing about Tom Brady, but they did a good job of getting that atmosphere. And even though the game was on NBC and, probably maybe helped them draw a million people, millions and 30 million people, I just don't understand the logic of avoiding the biggest story if you're a show that's supposed to be a general interest show, and just if you limit it too much. Am I right? I'm right?
Yeah, I like, of course, I like that decision. Look, my call of the week, I should have made it our bosses. They gave us this podcast. This is great. But
all right, let's go over the people. John, Butsy's kissed. We have the head of ESPN, the head of Fox. I think you missed McManus and Burson over at CBS. Yeah, did you get Lazarus?
They're coming episode 2.
Okay, episode 2. They get their fannies kissed. But anyways, now we're bosses. Go ahead. All
right, AC, roll the clip.
You got the bases loaded. Bowers well fouled down the third base line. Biggest pitch of the year here for the Mariners. 3-2, bases loaded. Cishek, the pitch. Base hit left field. Here comes JP. Bauer scores. JP scores. Mitch Haniger. What a night. What a night. I'm telling you, hey now. Hey now. Hey now. Mitch Haniger. Wow.
I mean, that was Root Sports' Dave Sims with what I thought was a perfect call for a local television channel. I mean, this was a do or die game on Saturday. The Mariners died on Sunday, but he set up the call with a prediction. He called the hit. His energy level met the moment. Nice job, Dave. I thought that was good.
Yeah, Dave Sims, former WFAN host with Ed Coleman. Back when I was a kid, I used to listen to them. Then he went out and became a play-by-play guy. And here's the thing about that call. The energy is just, it hits it. You feel it. The video they had also helped to really make you relate to what the Mariner fans were hearing. So yes, I think I gave it a 4.77 out of 5 clickers, which is a great rating. Everyone always wants a 5 out of 5, but 4.77 is a tremendous rating. I agree with you. That's a tremendous call of the week. And so congratulations to Dave Sims. He's in podcast history.
The first ever call of the week. Well, that wraps up our first ever episode of the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. Thank you all very much for lasting till the end. Please subscribe anywhere where you get your podcasts, and we're going to see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.